on Facebook. We're live on Facebook and as well as on YouTube, and you can as well send us your feedback through our SMS line, that is 23059. Now, the drift starts now. And the committee tasked with implementing the 10-point agenda agreed upon between President William Ruto and the late former ODM leader Raila Odinga has strongly defended its performance after being criticized by ODM Secretary General, that is Edwin Sifuna. Speaking at the launch of the Citizens Engagement Exercise in Kisumu, the committee blamed Sifuna for failing to consult them before realizing statements that they described as very strong and potentially undermining the work carried out so far. In an interview with a local TV station, Sifuna criticized the committee for failing to provide concrete evidence on the implementation of the 10 agreed points, which include tackling corruption, promoting inclusion, and compensating victims of demonstrations, and called for the nation to address these issues.
He goes to the media and says they have done this committee zero. He rated us zero. It's very unfortunate. A senior member of ODM, the Secretary General of ODM, and instead of guiding and supporting this process, because we are doing this work for Kenyans.
Do not listen to any other imposter, any other idler, any other person who has given themselves the responsibility of taking charge of our jobs. This job was given to us by the two principals themselves, and they are the only ones who retains the sole mandate to talk to us about that, the functions of the committee.
So even as we proceed to Singapore through Malaysia, let us also build Kenya to the point that even those countries can begin to admire. We have the capacity. We might just need to coordinate a little bit more. We might have to bring into face the sink and the psyche that we have as Kenyans to get there.
All right, moving on, the State Department for Technical and Vocational Education and Training, that is TVET, has announced key reforms under the TVET modularization programs. Principal Secretary Dr. Esther Moria confirmed that TVET training is now fully competency-based and delivered through short 3-month modules. The reforms aim to equip students with hands-on skills, shifting from purely theoretical learning to practical training. So far, the initiative has trained 1,500 solar installation technicians and established practical training centers, including a hairdressing institute in Kibra.
Examining of our students is formative. It is not summative. We are saying that if we are training you to do bricklaying, for example, we will observe you and check that you can do absolute bricklaying as you do it, and we declare you competent in bricklaying. What we are interested in is ensuring that if the young people have the skill, they can be able to do what it is that they are required to do. 1.5 months is enough to train the technicians for solar installation. And they are doing the solar installation here now. And the fee itself in the TVET space, we want to make it very clear this morning that it was capped at 35,000 for all the students, whatever course they are taking.
Now, former Nairobi Governor Mike Mbovi, popularly known as Sonko, has claimed that some powerful individuals are involved in his 20 million Kenya shillings corruption case. While giving testimony in court, Sonko said that the charges were initiated by influential people, with some senior officials allegedly threatening him when he opposed illegal land misappropriation, particularly in public schools. Now, he also claimed that these individuals attempted to involve senior county officials by offering bribes of up to 5 million Kenya shillings each to enable the illegal land deals that they visited in office, demanding 8 million Kenya shillings, a proposal he rejected before reporting the matter to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that is the EACC.
These clips, Your Honor, which I'm about to play, and materials, Your Honor, will confirm that my actions were never motivated by malice, Your Honor, personal gain, or political expediency, but by a genuine commitment to protect public resources fight corruption, defend the rule of law, and uphold the Constitution of Kenya.
All right, moving on, President William Ruto has urged young people to be cautious when participating in politics, noting that political environments include various risks, including ethnic discrimination. He spoke during the distribution of the Nyota Fund in Kilifi County. Each beneficiary will receive 50,000 Kenya shillings in 2 installments. In the first phase, beneficiaries will receive 25,000 Kenya shillings, of which 22,000 will be deposited directly into the digital wallets to support small businesses, while 3,000 Kenya shillings will be placed into small savings account managed by the National Social Security Fund, that is NSSF.
Siasa imetusumbua miaka nyingi. Siasa inaendeshwa kwa mirengo, kwa ubaguzi, kwa ukabila, kwa mambo ambayo yanatenga Wakenya wengine. Na ndio tumekubaliana safari hii. Mimi nilitoa ahadi. Wengine walikuwa wanasema huyu Ruto anasema uongo. Muko hapa leo ama hamuko? Hii pia ni uongo.
Kwa mapenzi yenyu. Ila sivyo, hii bidii yote ambayo rais ametuletea haitafua dafu. Kwa hivyo kwangu na kwa viongozi hao wamesimama hapa, tunataka tuwasihi vijana, msitubwage. Pesa hii ambayo mnapatiwa hivi leo na mtaendelea kupatiwa, muitumie kwa ujasiri ili itupatie zile kazi na kuzalisha na kukuza uchumi wa eneo hili letu.
Wakati tunaamini kazi ni kazi. Kazi kwa ground ni kazi. Kazi mtandaoni ni kazi. Kazi majuu ni kazi. Kazi ya biashara ya Nyota ni kazi. Ni kweli si kweli? Kwa hivyo mimi nimefurahi sana kwa sababu hii ndio itatusaidia tupanue uchumi wetu.
Right, moving on, the Indorois community achieved a historic legal victory against the government regarding the declaration of a large area in Baringo County as a forest, a decision that also affected land protecting Loromoru Primary School, which had been demolished by the Kenya Forest Service, that is KFS, last month. In a ruling delivered by Judge Millicent Odenyi of Nakuru Environment and Land Court, the court found that the process leading to the arable area declaration as a forest violated that constitution and law by failing to properly involve the public.
After reviewing the evidence that was presented to us by our client, we were convinced that we could make a case that there was no public participation. That was issue number one. Number two was that there was no adequate consultation with the National Land Commission as required in the process of taking over community land and making it public land.
What the court has ruled is what we had actually prayed for, that the land be decassated and it should be returned back to the community. And I think that is what the court has said. What we only want to request is that whatever the court has ruled, we want the government of the day to implement fully.
Tunaambia hao wachamaa wale walihusika na hiyo maneno ya kustaki sisi ya kwamba nyinyi mkupali muridike kwa kesi ile imetupwa kwa kotini. Kwa hivyo sasa nyinyi muridike na musikilize mambo ya court. Kwa hivyo sasa nyinyi wenyewe lazima muridike na mulipe sisi karama ya hiyo hasara mumetupatia sisi.
Right now, let's talk matters healthcare. And maternal and child healthcare services in Siaya County are expected to improve following the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the county government and the non-governmental organization Luala Community Alliance. Now, the organization's chief executive officer, Julius Mbaya, said that they have allocated 150 million Kenya shillings to fund the installation of essential equipment in all public health facilities in Siaya County with the aim of reducing maternal deaths during childbirth by approximately 70%. Now, the 5-year agreement will also facilitate training for healthcare workers on innovative maternal care methods. Siaya County Governor, that is James Orengo, praised the agreement, saying it will help lower medical costs in the county and called for more donors to come forward and support the health sector.
Our work is mainly at health facilities addressing the leading killers of women and newborns, and that is called emergency obstetric and newborn care. And we deploy a technology there called non-pneumatic anti-shock garment, which is applied when a woman is bleeding after birth, and it has been proven to reduce maternal deaths by more than 70%. This is a partnership, and so Luala is putting resources, the county is putting resources too. One of those practical things is that we will deploy about 388 non-pneumatic anti-shock garments in all health facilities offering deliveries across here.
Mothers play a very important role in communities and in families. So looking after our mothers and children is really taking care of communities. Part of the solution that we want to discuss with the Alliance is on health governance. Our health facilities, beginning from dispensaries, depend on outcomes in terms of deliveries, on how they are managed.
Now, the death of Kakamega Homeboys footballer Silas Abugana has taken a shocking turn after his family confirmed that he was allegedly killed by his 21-year-old younger brother, Denmark Mushiti. Speaking to the media at Shinyalu police station, the family said the two brothers were involved in a serious conflict during which Mushiti struck Silas on the head with a blunt object. Now, Silas passed away around 1 a.m. while receiving treatment at the Kakamega County Referral Hospital. Confirming the incident, Shinyalu OCPD Daniel Mukumbu said the suspect had fled the scene and police have launched a manhunt. The body of the slain is preserved at the hospital Macharia as investigations continue.
Walipofurukana walianzia kwa msichana ambayo kijana Cyrus anaishi naye. Cyrus ambaye ameaka. Msichana alikuja katika jikoni akapata shemeji yake. Wakati anaomba moto, shemeji akamjulisha hapana, akamcorrect hapana. Wewe unaomba moto na muko na kasi. Si uende wakishe kasi. Na muendelee. Sasa mbona unakuja kuomba moto na yako na kanyumba katoko? Kadaleta moshi. Aliporudi kwake aliambia Cyrus na akatoka kwa hasira akakata waya ile ambaye inapeleka taa kwa huyo kijana akiwa ndani ya nyumba. Alipotoka nje alipata Cyrus akamuuliza ni kwa nini unafanya hivi. Kijana rudi kwa nyumba akachukua muti ambaye ni rungu akamkonga kwa kichwa mahali hapa.
So far hatujashika, lakini tuko na familia hapa wao, sababu ni jambo ambayo ilifanyika kwa family. Lakini baadhi ya family members isipokuwa tunaambiwa kijana yule mwenye alimpiga alitoroka, lakini bado tunamfuata.
Now, Jomvu Member of Parliament Badi Twalib has called on the national government to urgently recruit more teachers to address the severe shortage in county schools. Twalib warned that the shortage could undermine efforts to achieve a 100% transition rate under the new education system. Speaking during a scholarship distribution event, he urged immediate government intervention. Now, Engineer Arda Mwenge, North Member of Parliament, Engineer Paul Nzegu, has called on the national government to ensure fairness in the allocation of public resources, saying the current distribution is inequitable. Speaking during a public meeting in Kyusyon, Zengu urged residents to support Wiper Party leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, in his political efforts.
Lakini mimi kama mbunge wa Mwingi North, hawa mama wananipigia simu kila siku. Wananiambia mheshimiwa, tunasikia kuna barua umepewa. Mimi wala sijapata barua moja. Lakini watu kutoka Rift Valley unasikia mtu anasema hapo na barua 10-20. Kwani Kenya ni ya watu fulani? Si ni yetu wote? Mbona kama wanapewa waheshimiwa wasinipea hata mimi nipewe watu wangu? Ama namna gani? Lakini kwa sababu wako kwa kiti saa hii, ile siku tutachukua kiti hata mimi nitafanya hivi. Kwani na mimi sitakuwa naenda kwa Kalonzo kwa sababu atakuwa mtu mkubwa sana. Mimi nitakuwa naenda kwa waziri, namwambia Kalonzo ameniambia nipe nafasi 500. Analetewa. Hawezi kuniuliza, atapigia Kalonzo amuulize. Lakini haifai hivyo. Nitafanya hivyo kwa sababu ya hasira. Inafaa kama ni Kenya, kila keki inakatiwa kila mwananchi wa Kenya. Kila region, ikuwe ni opposition, ikuwe ni ya serikali.
Now, the Kirinyaga County government has launched a program distributing sanitary pads in educational institutions to enable girls to stay in school during menstruation. Statistics indicate that 3 out of 10 girls miss schools during their periods. In the first phase, 3,173 girls from 20 schools received pads. Gender officer Sheila Mangi said that the initiative aims to remove barriers preventing girls from attending school uninterrupted.
Mwaka huu tumeweka pesa milioni 30 ambazo zitakuwa zikitumika kusaidia vijana, kina mama na pia persons with disability na wengineo ambao wale tunaita vulnerable and common interest groups.
And I really appreciate the pads that we've been given to our girls, especially during this time when parents are really crying that they don't have money. I know it will go far. Majority of them now will stay in school and will continue to cover the syllabus, and the curriculum will go on well.
Led by Our Excellency Governor Anne Mumbi Waiguru, we want to really appreciate on behalf of Kutus Comprehensive School because of this kind gesture that they have done to our girls today. It will be a memorable moment because you are not only taking care of their health, but their comfort here at school and back at home. Want to thank you because of the good work that you are doing to the Kirinyaga people and the citizens at large.
We've gone to 20 schools across Kirinyaga County in various wards. The essence of this exercise is to curb the sanitary pads issue, especially in the poverty pockets in the schools that we have in Kirinyaga. The essence is also to ensure that no girl child is left behind, especially during their menses.
Now, more than 140,500 residents are expected to benefit from aid amid the ongoing drought. The supplies which arrived on Wednesday include 2 trucks as part of a larger shipment of dry food, rice and beans. Speaking during the distribution event, Isiolo County Commissioner David Kiprop said the 2 trucks are part of the fleet of 15 delivering the aid.
Sababu ya dharura tukasema vile tuko na ukame inasumbua watu na bado kuna insecurity imeinterrupt livelihood ya kila mtu, tupewe chakula special consignment ambayo itaenda kwa the 10 wards isaidie watu.
Of course, there are wards that are a lot more adversely affected than others. When relief food committees meet, they will be able to, do an assessment, because obviously there are certain areas of our county that are a lot more affected than others. But on average, between 2,500 to 3,000 households are going to receive this food.
Now, traders at Troy Market along Kangundo Road estimate heavy losses after the market was demolished early in the morning by personnel reportedly linked to the Kenya National Highways Authority, that is KENHA. Now, traders blocked the road to protest the county government's failure to construct a promised new market. They have called on Governor Sakaja to intervene and provide a permanent solution.
So wamama wa hii soko wote wanahangaika sana, kila wakati ni kulia, tunapigwa matiagas, watoto hawajaenda shule, tumeamkia huku ndio tunapata jasho yetu ndio inatusomesha watoto, lakini unaona shida ndio mingi. So sisi tunasema hivi, leo ikifika jioni tukue tumeambiwa tunaenda wapi, soko iko wapi, soko kamili iko wapi, ama tumechoka. So sisi hatutoki hapa ndio tunajua tunauzia, wateja wetu wengi wako huku Ruai, kwa hivyo tupangwe vizuri, hatutoki kama hatujapangwa, period.
Kuna wakora walikuwa wakiuza wakateka over, tukamwambia wananchi wa soko ya Ruai wajakataa kuenda bypass, ende uchukue wale wakora utoe, ili wa mama wa soko waende wale walitoa pesa. Hivyo ndio tuliongea na yeye jana, lakini kuanzia saa 6:30 leo hakuna soko Ruai. Ninastuka sana, askari wakiitwa kutupiga tiagas wanaitika, lakini wakiitwa waenda kusika wakora hawaendi. So kuanzia leo, kama hiyo ndio soko ya Ruai, sisi hatutoki hapa mpaka tupangwe vizuri.
Right, that particular story takes us on a fast breather here on The Drift, but when we come back, we'll tell you what exactly the newspapers are saying. Don't go too far.
your world.
All right, welcome back to the program. My name is Martin Macharia. Now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the dailies today. And I'm having the Daily Nation and the Standard newspaper this particular morning, dated the 6th day actually of February 2026. All right, now let's kickstart with the Daily Nation and sad story where family's agony as 5 suffer cancer. Now for Brian Tende, cancer has been an invited constant in his life since 1993, when his first wife died from breast cancer. Years later, the killer disease claimed his mother and father in quick succession, but nothing prepared him for what he termed other 40 came next. Right? Of course, you'd remember just the other day people actually acknowledging World Cancer Day, right? And it's quite unfortunate that this has been a killer disease over the years. And Harold Tende, Brian's father, died on July 29, 2006 from prostate cancer. He was a sales representative. And of course, Grace Wawuda, his mother, died on December 31st of 2005 from cervical cancer. She was a housewife, and as well as Zipporah Washia, his first wife, died on November 23 in 1993 from breast cancer. She worked at a coffee cooperative. Of course, it's quite an unfortunate situation to be in, losing your wife, your father and mother in a close range of years. Quite unfortunate. And there is a picture there of Mr. Brian Tende Mukwaro and his son Harold Tende, who is 29, during an interview at Aga Khan University Hospital in Nairobi. Let's take a look at that particular story on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And compared to cancer today, cancer awareness was minimal at the time. Mwakuro's wife died the same year. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. Years later, his mother was found to have cervical cancer, and his father followed with prostate cancer. Now, even with that, nothing prepared him for what was to come. Harold began having neck problems in 2015. He experienced frequent nosebleeds and bouts of headaches at high school. Now, the family hoped that hospital visit would eventually end. When Harold returned home from college during the holidays, Makuro noticed a swelling around his neck, and insisted he sees an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Now, the specialist took samples and sent them to a pathologist. Harold completed treatment and waited 5 years for doctors to declare him cancer-free. Now, there was no cancer markers in his body. In the 5th year, he succumbed, he resumed ordinary life, playing rugby and becoming living proof that one could survive the disease. He, however, began having strange symptoms in the 7th year, what initially felt like common cold. Now, family members teased Harold, saying he just needed to keep warm. He went to hospital alone and he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Harold completed treatment for a second time. The young man's composure gave his father strength, as he refused to be an object of sympathy. Now, after Harold completed his treatment, he started immunotherapy, a program that helps the body fight cancerous cells. Makuros was diagnosed with prostate cancer at stage 1. It's quite unfortunate, and the title is actually 5 Cancer Cases, Families 30-Year Medical Nightmare. All right. And of course, as well, also on page 3 is actually matters to do with healthcare, where cancer patients stranded as insurance approvals fail. And I don't know if this particular model, the SHA, the Social Health Authority, actually covers for these chronic diseases, because in this particular article on page 3 says cancer patients were stranded as insurance approvals fails, and cancer patients at Kenyatta National Hospital's Oncology Center have decried delays in Social Health Authority, that is SHA approvals, that are affecting their treatment. Now they say their treatment is being delayed or disrupted. On the World Cancer Day, a day intended to spark hope of advocate for better care, the halls of the cancer center were instead filled with the quiet desperation of over 20 patients caught in the bureaucratic deadlock. Now, for many, the transition from the defunct NHIF to the new SHA has become an obstacle to assessing or accessing the medicine that they need to survive. For patients like 60-year-old Dishon Munase, who traveled from Kakamega County to seek treatment at KNH, the delay is not just an inconvenience, but a threat to his recovery. Right, and it's quite unfortunate, and we hope that the government and the Ministry of Health should actually sort out the teething problems in the Social Health Authority insurance. Right. Still on page 3, patients forced to pay on oncology services, and cancer patients who have depleted their oncology benefits continue to pay out of pocket as the Social Health Authority, that is SHA benefit increase promised 2 months ago by President William Ruto remains unimplemented. In November last year, during the State of the Nation address in Parliament, President William Ruto announced an increase in the SHA cancer benefits package from 550,000 Kenya shillings to 800,000 Kenya shillings effective December 1st of 2025 to help the patients access sustained treatment without financial strain. However, hospitals are yet to implement this, saying that until the tariff structures for the revised oncology benefit package are gazetted by SHA, providers cannot operate the increase. Right? That was according to Margaret Kaninis, who said that SHA cover ran out 2 months ago, and each vial of medical cost more than she earns in a month. All right. This story is actually happening even as we mark the World Cancer Day. And of course, we've seen people actually suffering out here because of these chronic illnesses. And it's quite unfortunate that the government entrusted to steer the health sector actually problems in that particular sector where patients are decrying the high cost of these medicines. Someone here said that Miss Margaret Kaninis says that that SHA cover ran out 2 months ago, and each vial medication cost more than she earns in a month. And you can imagine, if you don't have any support system, you can imagine how that may look like. All right, it's quite unfortunate, and we hope and trust that our government will actually sort out the teething problems in the Social Health Authority. All right. Moving on to other matters in the Daily Nation front page, it is revealed that that opposition tabled a week of Marjan's exit. Now leaders claim that the extension of a contract for an election system supplied by Venezuelan firm Smartmatic bypassed legal safeguards. That's on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Of course, you will remember that just this particular week, days ago, now it's the former, CEO, the chief executive officer for IEBC, Hussein Marjan, actually resigned from that particular office, and he was actually scheduled to, to end his tenure on March 2027. All right. Now listen to this controversial story in regards to that, and how Kemi's tender extension sparked opposition protests, and opposition leaders handed a memorandum of the Independent Electoral and Monitoring Commission, that is the IEBC, questioning the extension of a multi-billion shilling polls system contract 1 week before the exit of Chief Executive Officer Hussein Marjan. And now the memo was delivered on January 28th at the Commission's Anniversary Towers offices during a meeting attended by all commissioners led by Chairperson Erastus Edang Ethakon. Now it challenged that the extension of the Kenya Integrated Elections Management System, that is KEMI's contract supplied by a Smartmatic, a Venezuelan technology firm. Mr. Marjan also attended the meeting with the media, including the IBC press unit, was not invited to. Now, the memo seen by the Nation outlines how the multi-billion shilling strategic procurement project, which requires approval by the commissioners sitting at the plenary, was extended in November 2024. At the time, the commission has no commissioners after previous members either left the office under pressure or retired at the end of their terms. Only the secretariat, led by CEO, was overseeing operations. Dr. Ethakon, 6 other commissioners, and Nderito, Moses Mukwana, Karen Sorobit, Hassan Nur Hassan, Francis Odhiambo, and Fahim Abdallah was sworn in July last year. And Smartmatic, which has faced elections fraud claims linked to the 2020 US presidential election, provides hardware, software, and services of voter registration, polling, counting, and results transmission. Now, the absence of the commissioners at the time of the contract extension raises questions over who authorized the decision given legal safeguards. Now, the opposition argued that procurement of electoral technology is not an ordinary transition, as it goes to the heart of Kenya's constitutional democracy and national stability. That's a story on page 4 and 5, actually, exclusively on matters to do with IEBC and, what led to Hussein Marjan, who was the CEO of IEBC, who actually resigned this particular week ahead of, the end of his tenure in 2027 March. Right? You can actually find that on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this particular morning. Moving on to other matters making headlines on the front pages of the Daily Nation. Change of guard. Faith says, that is Faith Moni Odhiambo, who's the president of LSK, says that 2027 polls will test her successor. Now, with the sun setting on the tenure of Faith Odhiambo as president of the Law Society of Kenya, she is advising her successor ahead of this month's polls to brace for tougher times in the run-up to next year's elections, citing experiences during the Gen Z riots. That's our story as well on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Now, in regards to that particular story, it is actually exclusively on the whole page of page 10, where Faith actually says, if you are to assess the tenure, I've give myself 85%. My agenda was on protecting the rule of law, stability of the bar, progress in practice, and welfare, which I pretty much tried to adhere to. Now, we have not cracked on just to ensure the Secretariat is more responsive. The new enterprise resource planning, that is the ERP, had teething problems when it was launched last year. Now, there is no fluiding in terms of access to documentation, a better outlook of the website, and ease, being able to access services. And of course, there are some things that, the questions that Faith Moni Odhiambo, the president of LSK, had to answer. The first one was, if you were to access my tenure, she has outlined, what that actually means and what, will you tell your successor? She said that in 2027 is coming and it is not going to be easy. The LSK will be needed to has a voice of reason and protector of rule of law, right? And of course, she was asked, what are you doing in your last days of as LSK boss. She said that I'm focusing on completing my legacy project. I already finished the ERP system, which ensures better service. Focus is on Wakili Towers, where working with the Secretariat to ensure smooth transition, and as well, what was your greatest moment, and as well your lowest moment? Did the president call you to before the appointment? How did you overcome all that? Did you make a wrong decision to join the government? What did that teach you about leadership? Did you, at the point during June 25th, 2024 protest, fear for your life? And were you being trailed? Did you have to put special considerations for your security? Of course, Raila Odinga endorsed you for the LSK presidency before he died. How did that affect you? And as well as many questions that, LSK president, that is Faith Moni Odhiambo, had to answer in regards to, his tenure, how her tenure has been, all right? Of course, even as they are heading towards elections to find her successor, the new president of the LSK, end of an era, LSK boss urges her successor to put more focus on young lawyers as they command numbers. That's a story exclusively on page 10 of the Daily Nation this particular morning. On matters governance, rule of the jungle, new report exposes state-linked terror, and Kenya's human rights record remained deeply troubling over the past year, captured in killings by security forces, shrinking civic space, and entrenched impunity, says the latest Human Rights Watch report. That's as well on page 8 of the Daily Nation this particular morning. Now, let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper on the 6th day of February 2026. Now, top story on the Standard says, illusion of numbers. President William Ruto has been upbeat about the swelling list of aspirants seeking UDA tickets ahead of the 2027, touting the numbers as proof of a party family in command. But beneath the bravado, the figures tell a more unsettling story in a party heavily titled towards the valley, bleeding interest in former strongholds and revealing shifting allegiance of that threaten to punch a UDA's claim of national dominance. That's on page 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper. And the number of governors aspirants with the UDA tickets is actually 149 aspirants. And of course, as you can see on your screens, there is a map right there of the Kenyan flag. And of course, the yellow part is, the aspirants that you can see on your screens. That's the front page of the Standard newspaper this particular morning. And the yellow part is actually the number of aspirants. That's actually the region where the UDA has actually earmarked for even as we head to the 2027 general elections. And of course, the number of governors aspirants is 149. 279 are the number of senator aspirants, and as well as 323 women representative, that is aspirants, and 1,372 member of parliament, that is in the National Assembly aspirants, and of course as well as 10,230 MCAs, that is the member of county assembly aspirants of the UDA. And if, you can see the region where this UDA under President William Ruto, who is the flag bearer of that particular flag bearer, and of course the party leader of United Democratic Alliance, that is the UDA, the ruling party right now. And of course you can see the region where they have actually marked that particular region. The numbers are actually high, and 12,353 is actually the numbers of aspirants under the UDA ticket, and who attended the aspirants forum for the 2027 general elections held at State House, Nairobi. Let's take a look at that particular story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. Now, work cut out underneath UDA numbers lies a damning truth. That's on page 4. In the United Democratic Alliance, that is UDA, faces a critical test after its list of 2027 aspirants revealed a distribution pattern that exposed the party's soft underbelly. President William Ruto and other parties' stalwarts have been chest dumping the UDA. That UDA is the face of the country and the nation's heartbeat. However, more than 50% of those seeking to contest under its banner hail from President's backyard in Rift Valley. Meanwhile, its former stronghold of Mount Kenya is stuttering with markedly lower interest compared with the last elections. Now, figures released by the UDA and widely circulated show that the 12,000 aspirants aspiring for to be the 2027 ballot and hosted by President William Ruto at State House this week, a majority are from the Rift Valley, whereas the process has not been closed. The number thence compared to more than 20,000 aspirants who expressed interest in the party in 2022. Now, exactly 50% of those eyeing for lucrative gubernatorial seats are from the region, signaling that elected leaders from previous UDA strongholds, such as Mount Kenya, are playing their cards close to their chest as of August 8th of 2027 draws near. Now, UDA's fortunes appears to be waning in the Gusii region, which delivered 213,682 votes to President William Ruto against Raila Odinga's 394,103 in the last elections. Now, only one aspirant registered in the Kisii for the governor's seat, while Nyeri attracted just two. Some key UDA diehards expected to ask State House did not show up. All right, that's a story exclusively on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. You know how the road to 2027 actually looks like, with 12,000. Let me take that number again: 12,353 aspirants under UDA. Of course, you can actually see that on the front page of the Standard that the region where the United Democratic Alliance, that is UDA, under President William Ruto, his stronghold is actually in the Rift Valley, all right? And the number in, the Mount Kenya region is actually stuttering. Now, what does that actually mean, even as we head to the next general elections in 2027? We've actually seen, divergent views from, members of the Mount Kenya region in the UDA party, which the Standard actually says that, during the meeting with the aspirants in State House Nairobi this particular week, some of the Mount Kenya leaders, the diehards of the UDA in, from the Mount Kenya region, did not actually show up for the meeting at State House. All right, that shows, the deepening rift between the president's popularity in the Mount Kenya region. Of course, you'll see, how that will unfold even as we head to 2027 polls. All right, now let's take a look on other stories making headlines on the Standard newspaper this particular morning. Now, ghost school scandals has emerged again, and 87,000 phantom learners on the books. All right, this is not a new story. Rather, it is a new story that is emerging, but this has been happening. We've actually seen, ghost schools, ghost learners, and of course the government actually, gives capitation to these particular schools and these particular learners. Now, there is a picture there of the CS for education, that is Julius Migos Ogamba, on page 2 of the Daily Nation Matters Education. Now, it has now emerged that at least 87,000 ghost learners were embedded in official education records, as even as dozens of public schools with no learners continue to appear as operational, exposing deep systematic failures in enrollment data management and raising fresh concerns over the integrity of government capitation. Now, damning details have now emerged, showing 26 public primary and secondary schools were listed as operational despite having no learners, laying bare the extent of ghost schools embedded in official education records and raising serious questions about whether taxpayers may have continued funding institutions that had effectively ceased to exist. Now, the revelations are contained in the National School Data Verification Report set to be released today following the nationwide enrollment verification exercise conducted between September and October of 2025. Now, the verification exercise also uncovered widespread enrollment distortions, including at least 87,000 ghost learners captured in the system without corresponding physical presence in schools, contributing to inflated figures used in planning and funding decisions. Now, overall enrollment declared before verification stood at 11.6 million learners, but dropped to 11 million after physical verification, leaving 547,637 learners unaccounted for. Now, the Ministry of Education says the discrepancy points to ghost learners and outdated records. Right, and of course, just before the end of 2025, we actually saw ghost schools. And of course, we had a discussion about that matters education. Of course, one of my guests here on EBN television actually said that how are these ghost schools and ghost learners actually coming about? And he said that, it is a seemingly sort of, coming up with ghost schools. Schools actually used for as polling stations. Now, that particular guest argued that these ghost schools emerge even as we head to the elections, where they are used as polling stations. Right? I don't know what's your take on that. How do we come about to these ghost schools and ghost learners? Tell us on our SMS line to 3059 and as well as on our pages at EBN TV Kenya across all socials. All right, moving on to some other stories right here on the Standard newspaper this particular morning. Nandi Hills pool table police officers are transferred to Nairobi. All right, and of course, you will remember that particular video that went viral of police officers in uniform actually, assaulting, people who are at a pool table, someplace in Nandi Hills. Now, they have been transferred to Nairobi. Senior police officers who are placed under administrative action following the brutal assault of young men playing pool in Nandi Hills since being transferred to stations in Nairobi, a move that has drawn outrage from a section of Kenyans. Now, the transfer follows a circulation of distributing CCTV footage showing police officers beating and roughing up youth at the pool table venue in Nandi Hills last month. In a statement released last Saturday, National Police Service spokesperson Macharia Nyaga said Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja had directed the Internal Affairs Unit, that is IAU, to conduct investigations after the video emerged. Now, those affected include the Sub-County Police Commander OCPD for Tinderet, the Officer Commanding Station, that is OCS for Songo, and the OCS for Nandi Hills, and officers in charge of the Rapid Development Unit, that is RDU, GSU, and ASTU at Songo Camp. Now, however, the Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei Gay on Tuesday faulted the police leadership, accusing the Inspector General of Police of merely reshuffling officers instead of taking disciplinary action. Speaking in Nairobi, legislator said families of the assaulted youth were still grappling with medical bills and trauma counseling weeks after the attack. Right, and it's quite unfortunate, our security agents, people who we pay with our taxpayers' money, actually being reshuffled instead of, being given a disciplinary action. Now, the police who were seen in a video that went viral in Nandi Hills assaulting people in a pool table area, they have been transferred from Nandi Hills to Nairobi. Instead of, the police taking disciplinary action, it is in the footage. Right, there are evidence of this particular, people, violently assaulting this youth in Nandi Hills. It's quite unfortunate how the system actually operates. All right, that's a story on page 2 of the Standard newspaper, and I don't know what's your take on that. Instead of disciplining these officers, you're actually transferring them from Nandi to Nairobi. Quite unfortunate. Moving on to other matters making headlines now. Over 100 Kenyans detained in Saudi over 100 Kenyans are detained in Saudi as state dithers. Now, inside the vast humid hall, a weak woman lies on the floor struggling to breathe, her dry coughs and drowned by whistling sounds of air conditioners meant to keep away the swelling or the sweating heat at the infamous Samasco deportation camp in Riyadh, that is in Saudi Arabia. Now she lies there for hours until someone helps her to eat or take her to the toilet. For is the case for Anita, not a real name, who for 5 months she has been waiting for deportation back to Kenya. Now Anita, who arrived in the country with the promise of a better life and salary rewarded, worked for over 3 years as a domestic worker, but she could no longer handle the harsh working conditions. In a voice note from the deportation camp, she says things got worse after she was sexually abused by her employer, and her efforts to seek assistance fell on deaf ears. Later, she contracted pneumonia. Too weak to work, she sought help from the Kenyan embassy and was taken to the deportation center. 5 months down the line, weak, without any savings and facing death, she waits in the hope that the government will intervene. Right, those are some of the problems that actually people are facing. You know, when you go to seek employment in some other countries, especially the Saudi Arabia, and I wonder why the government tolerate people being going to Saudi Arabia. This is not the first case actually where we've had domestic workers who move from Kenya to Saudi Arabia to seek work. This is not the first time that we are hearing such cases. It has actually been there, and what is the government actually doing? Quite unfortunate, seeing these particular stories emerging now and again, and the government know, and this particular lady actually is seeking help from the government for deportation back to the country, right? And can the government actually create employments within the country where someone actually feels safe? You can imagine someone going to Saudi Arabia. You don't have any relative there. You are there for a contract. You can't go back to your country after before your contract is due. And you actually have an unconstituted office, according to the courts of the Foreign Affairs Ministry, headed by Musalia Mudavadi, who is the Prime CS. That is actually an unconstituted office according to the Constitution, all right? And he is actually the person to oversee, these incidences. And of course, the ministry of, which is held by Alfred Mutua. Quite unfortunate, and we hope that Anita, not her real name, will be repatriated back to the country. All right? Moving on to other matters making headlines on the Standard newspaper this particular morning. Court hurls Nairobi Hospital, AGM, of a 9.1 billion dispute. Now, the High Court has stopped the Nairobi Hospital's annual general meeting, slated for today, over alleged 9.1 billion financial mismanagement and a deepening leadership crisis. Justice Lawrence Mugambi issued the orders yesterday, pending the hearing of a petition filed by the Busia Senator Kiom Tata alongside activist Bernard Boshiri, Macharia, and Nairobi Nyakirario Masati. Now, they had sued the hospital top leadership of alleged financial mismanagement and governance chaos at the iconic medical institutions. Now, the petitioners have hereby issued a restraining the first and second respondents, that is the Nairobi Hospital and its board, where by themselves, their agents and servants, employees, proxies, or persons acting under their authority from convening, holding, conducting, facilitating, or in any manner whatsoever proceeding with the annual general meeting of the Kenya Hospital Association scheduled for February 6th of 2026, or any adjournment or continuation where the judge actually ordered. Now, the judge directed that the orders remain in full force until February 23rd of 2026. Justice Mugambi further directed the hospital, its board members and top leaders, the Attorney General, Inspector of Police, EACC, DCI, and other respondents listed in the suit to file responses to the case within 7 days, right? That's what's up on matters to do with the corridors of justice. Right now, drought agency fails to curb losses as communities struggle to survive. That's a story on page 6 of the Standard newspaper this particular morning. And of course, as well as worrying patterns that fuel drought cycle. That's as well on page 7. Matters to do with IBC and politics. National matters. IBC gets acting CEO as Hussein Majans bows out. And the acting IBC CEO is Executive Moses Ledama Sunkuli. Is now the acting IBC Chief Executive Officer, and the Independent Electoral Memories Commission yesterday announced the appointment of its Director of Electoral Operations, Moses Ledama Sunkuli, as the acting Chief Executive Officer, a position he will hold for 6 months before a substantive replacement is recruited. And of course, you will remember that Hussein Marjan, who was the then CEO of IEBC, actually resigned this particular week before or ahead of his end of his tenure, which was actually slated for March 2027. Now, they have a new acting IEBC Chief Executive Officer, that is Moses Ledama Sunkuli, will actually be in that particular office for the period of 6 months, even as they recruit a substantive replacement. All right. And no matters still politics, panic as ODM UDA pact falls apart, and ODM leaders hoping to secure zoning in the political arrangement with President William Ruto. UDA party have thrown into limbo as President intensifies the preparations for the next year's general elections. That's a story exclusively on page 9 of the Standard newspaper. Right, you're now up to speed with what you're waking up to this particular morning as far as news is concerned, of course, and as far as the governance of this particular country is concerned. All right, now we're going to keep tabs with these particular developing stories, and of course we'll be bringing you in a subsequent bulletins later on in the day at 1 p.m., 4 p.m., and of course 7 and 9 p.m. My name is Martin Macharia. Many thanks, of course, keeping me in company until this particular minute. You've been watching The Drift, a show that comes to you every Friday, 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Right? Your leadership challenge is actually coming up next in the top of the hour. Martin Macharia is my name. Do have yourself a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. And as always, let's do this again when God says we do.